welcome to another episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they release. Unfortunately, today we are not going to do that, but also fortunately today we are having an intermission episode to talk about a movie that we never shut the hell up about on all the other episodes. It is Swimfan from 2002. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And Charlie Nash.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest from Vulture. It's Roxana Hadadi.
Hello, guys. How are you?
Good. Great.
Good.
So happy to have you.
So happy to have you.
Thank you, guys. I'm sad we're not doing this from, like, an abandoned high school swimming pool. But, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty much, just of my own volition, I saw that you wrote or had an interview with Erica Christensen back in April, and then apropos of nothing, I was just like, yeah, if we do an intermission, what could we do? And I was just like, well, if there's somebody who also seems to care about this movie more than us, then I think it would be her. So I think we got to get her on for that. But how was that interviewing? Because I've read it a few times, and I was just expecting like 3 or 4 questions, and I was like, this thing is in depth.
Yeah, man. Like, I really love our roll call feature at Vulture, where it's basically just like, how many questions can we ask this person about one of their projects? Nah. So I think I prepared like 35 questions for her, and I had an hour. So like, we did cut some stuff out of the interview. But I really appreciated how forthcoming she was. Like, she was really down to talk about it. Which, why not? It's the 20th anniversary, which is sort of wild to think about. And I feel like we sort of talk about this in the interview. Like, movies like this don't get made anymore. Like, I think if they were going to do it these days, it would be like an 8-episode Netflix series that, like, people talked about for a day and then forgot about. Mm-hmm. So it's such a product of its time in, like, an excellent way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was trying to think last night, like, I was up till like 5 in the morning, like, just like, while I was like scrolling through my phone, thinking like, what other movies like since then have there been like this? And I thought like the closest I could think of like theatrically was that Jennifer Lopez movie, The Boy Next Door, where it's like sort of an obsessed stalker thriller and like trying to be erotic, and like that one's different because it's R-rated, even though it's not a sexy movie, but like but yeah, that's like the closest I could think. But then yeah, you're right that it is like it's either a streaming show or it's like on like a streaming service, like The Voyeurs. That was an Amazon
The Voyeurs,
movie.
which was on Prime. Yeah, and like the thing also about Boy Next Door is like it's funny. I think of Boy Next Door more like the other J-Lo movie Enough.
Yeah.
Where it's like J-Lo isn't in sort of like sexy thrillers where she's the bad guy, right? She's in sexy thrillers where she is pursued. With like the exception of Hustlers, which isn't really a thriller so much as it's like a commentary on our economy. But yeah, it's like I just think like the erotic thriller as a genre, and that's what this Q&A was part of. That genre in and of itself has sort of died out as a theatrical medium. But Swimfan, like, I think stands the test of time because it's so in conversation with the movies that have come before it, and yet also serves as a demarcation point. Like, to your point, there haven't been any others really since then. I think probably of its time, it's most like Cruel Intentions, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
In that sort of like love triangle, obsessive female, but even still, Cruel Intentions feels like the glossy sort of A-list version of that, and Swimfan is like the scrappy B-movie version of that. So I miss the time when we got different tiers of these hilarious, sort of bad but very enjoyable movies.
It's exactly why I enjoyed Deep Water so much, which Kevin hates.
Bless that movie. That movie's great.
Thank you. I love that movie.
That movie is great.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and I just miss erotic thrillers so much, and I just remember just feeling so like just being like, oh my god, these types of delightfully trashy movies for adults are back. Like, I don't.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to Patricia Highsmith, because like a lot of her adaptations are just, they fit exactly in that realm. I don't know if you guys have seen The Many Faces of January, But that was Viggo Mortensen, Kristen Dunst, and Oscar Isaac. And that was another one where it's like beautiful European location, well-dressed assholes.
Yeah.
That's very much, a mid-century thing that we just keep going back to. But should we cut Kevin out for not liking the excellence that is Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas together?
Go ahead. I'll be back. Don't worry.
Just get rid of Kevin. Wait, can we take a pause, Kevin? Why didn't you like it? Can we talk about that briefly before we talk about Swimfan?
I mean, it was just boring. Sorry.
No.
Until like the last 20 minutes where it's Ben Affleck and Tracy Letts. And I'm just like, what is going on? This is wild.
Were you not captivated by the snails as a metaphor for his desire for human connection? Oh, aggressive yawn. Wow.
Also, the opening scene where Ana de Armas yells at Alexa to turn that off. Like, Alexa, turn that shit off. I don't want to hear Old MacDonald had a farm ever again.
I love her. I mean, I'm really waiting for an actual movie that uses Ana de Armas effectively. Wasp Network did, and that might have been the only one.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I'm like the sole Wasp Network apologist alive, but it's good and fun.
And we do have Blonde coming out next month.
Yes.
Which, and it's Andrew Dominic, who is a very talented filmmaker.
Yeah.
Andrew Dominic, perfect, flawless. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Trust.
But yeah, just the idea that the end of erotic big budgeted movies like this pretty much died when they were just like, how about we just remake Fatal Attraction? They're just like, you've gone too far. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Kevin. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I was just going to do a quick rundown. Swimfan was released September 6, 2002. I did not need to look this up. Released on DVD March 11th, 2003. Okay, so I was 10 years old, obsessed with the trailer for this movie. And my brother would not take me to the theaters to see it, which I was very upset. And this was back in the day where it took 6 months for a movie to come out on home video.
Yeah.
So I knew the release date by heart, and yeah, nothing was the same after that. This was definitely my. I'll get into it in initial thoughts. It opened up at number 1 in 2,800
Did it
theaters.
really?
Yes.
I mean, September 6th, that sounds like kind of a dead weekend. That's
pretty
early
much.
September.
Pretty much.
It's like Labor Day. I think it's pretty much, I could see it as being like a last bang movie for teenagers before school starts.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. Opened at number 1 in 2,800 theaters. Budget of $10 million opening weekend, $11 million. Domestic gross of $28.5 million, and overall gross of $34 million. Top 5 films that weekend was Swimfan at number 1, My Big Fat Greek Wedding in its 21st week, City by the Sea, Signs, and Triple X.
Wow.
Oh God, those. You know what? I love hearing that list. What an array of films! All of those were what, like basically originals.
Boom. Yep.
City by the Sea, I think, is loosely based on a real murder case, I think, but it's heavily embellished upon, as many movies are.
Yeah, and this is essentially just Fatal Attraction or whatever, but theoretically all originals. A simpler time, a pre Marvel DCEU time.
Yeah.
Well, the only superhero movie that had come out it was Spider-Man and the first X-Men, I think, at this point.
I think so, yeah.
Getting that, getting that ball rolling. But Also, that movie was good, along with the second one. I miss when superhero movies were just so good like that, and actually allowed Sam Raimi to. I didn't see the Doctor Strange movie, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but actually allowed Sam Raimi to be an auteur and didn't just mesh him into a system.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's sort of the thing about all of those were that they were the first of their kind at that time, right? So you didn't have to fit an established studio style, which was also the great thing I think about Swimfan is that it had to fit genre conventions for the erotic thriller, and so there were a lot of things that you sort of assumed were going to happen. Something that is so funny just about the genre in general is just this I'm laughing about it because it's so funny to me. Just the sense that like these men would be who these women would lose their minds over. Like Jesse Bradford, like
that too.
Jesse Bradford is like handsome or whatever, but I love watching this movie and being like, this guy, like he is who you're like risking your life and sanity for. Like, okay,
he does not have a personality other than he likes to swim.
He
and
swims.
He had a troubled past.
Yeah,
and he had a drug situation, as he calls it.
He had a drug situation. He's like sort of a bad boy. Which you know because he was in Bring It On, in which he was sort of a bad boy.
Yeah, he was. Do you see him brush his teeth in that scene? That's a bad boy, man.
That's true. Yes, he'll make you a mixtape, and it's dangerous.
I will admit, Roxana, like Kevin, I was 11, so I was 1 year older than Kevin. I had a subscription to Nickelodeon magazine, which one issue came with a free fold-out poster of Clockstoppers.
Clockstoppers!
And I even saw Clockstoppers, and even as a kid, I was like, I think that movie sucked, but I hung that poster up on my room because Closeted Me was like, that Jesse Bradford is quite handsome.
He is. Like I'm not trying to say that the man is not handsome, because I had a Bring It On like homage on my wall also to this man who I thought like he'll understand me. But he definitely doesn't have a personality in the movie. You're absolutely right. Like he just does not have anything, which I think at the same time for a teen movie can sort of be a benefit, right? Because you want young, impressionable viewers to project whatever they want onto this handsome mannequin of a man. But yeah, like it came out and was like commercially successful, right? I mean, like critically panned, of course.
No, of course.
But like commercially successful at first. And yeah, I honestly do not even remember the first time I saw this. It must have been on TV because I do not remember seeing it in theaters. I think it was like a Saturday, as all of my early viewings were. I think it was like a Saturday afternoon rerun on like TBS or something.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I remember the first time I heard of it. My mom took me and a friend to see Mr. Deeds.
Hell yeah!
Wow!
And this was the first trailer they showed was for Swimfan, and I remember as a kid being like, "That looks intense!" Like, and I don't think I saw it until like I remember I got it from my like local library or something like a few years later, probably because I had a crush on Jesse Bradford, and yeah, so that was my first exposure.
Shout out to libraries! Like,
I know.
Anytime you're like, you know what, I need this physical media, the library will have it. If you have a library card, you can watch things on Canopy. You can borrow things on
Canopy's
Hoopla.
wonderful.
Hoopla is also pretty good.
And Libby I use a lot.
Oh, I don't know if we have like the Libby partnership here in Maryland. That's interesting.
What's up, ladies? Hey. My swimming buddy.
Ben Cronin thought he had it all.
Scouts are coming next week.
It might actually happen, huh?
Yeah, can you picture it?
Good friends.
I just remember why we broke up, Josh.
You couldn't handle me in bed, or?
And a bright future.
So, Madison Bell. Dude, she is so smoking hot. You know I'm planning on hearing that little southern accent when she moans my name.
I can't get this stupid thing open. Do you think you could?
Take a look, yeah.
What's the letter for, Ben Cronin?
The letter is for swimming.
Are you good?
I'm okay, yeah.
But he never imagined.
What are you doing here?
One moment
Okay, I want you to.
could change everything.
Mom!
Oh, funny thought. Surprise. It's so great to finally meet your mother.
Finally, you just met me.
You want to pretend like it never happened?
I have a girlfriend.
Don't worry about me. I got somebody waiting for me in New York.
You have 81 new emails. Picture received.
Gotcha.
Hey.
Hey.
This is my boyfriend, Ben Cronin. Amy just can't stop talking about her perfect boyfriend, even when I beg her to stop.
I know what you're doing. No emails, no visits, nothing. I'm with Amy.
Ben, get back here!
You tested positive for steroids.
I don't take steroids.
Clean out your locker. You're off the team.
She did it. I know she did. You're crazy, man. You're losing.
Don't worry about me. I got somebody waiting for me in New York.
She killed him.
When I was with him, I pretended he was you.
Paramedics just brought Amy in.
She okay?
Amy, where is she?
She's not good enough for you.
Swimfan.
But yeah, so we were all intrigued by it. None of us are gonna admit thinking it looked bad. Like, we're all gonna say that we thought it looked good.
It had Disturbed in the trailer. I was there day one. Okay?
It's wild that they don't use that in the movie, because there's the line in the song where it's like, "Don't deny me," and it's like, that's like the "I'm not going to be ignored," like that could be "I'm not going to be ignored" anthem. That would have been awesome if it was in the movie, if like Erica Christensen's like blasting that song or whatever.
I'll make a fan edit of it. The part where she's sadly listening to like classical music, I'm just gonna put Disturbed on there. So
yeah, just erase the fact that she played the cello and just really
she played electric guitar. Hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would kick ass.
I will say, when I saw it as a teenager, eventually I was like, that sucked, but like in a fun way. Like, and rewatching it last night, I had much more fun with it this time around, especially considering that, like we've talked about now, erotic thrillers don't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. So, like, even though I think this is a bad movie, it's very enjoyable.
Oh, yeah.
And also, rewatching that trailer, they spoil the entire
whole
movie.
Besides her dying, everything's
movie. And the other thing that I thought was very funny, I noticed this because I've seen the trailer a few times. There is a shot. Did they like shoot an alternate ending of this movie? Because in the trailer, there's a shot of Jesse Bradford clearly standing where he's about to see Madison with Amy tied to the swivel chair. And there's a shot in the trailer where he's like, "Where is she?" And I'm just imagining, like, I'd be like, she's right in front of you, dude. Like,
I think they must have, because like when I spoke. So stupid. When I spoke to Erica, she sort of implied that there was the possibility of a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
So I do wonder if there were like a couple different versions that they filmed, like maybe one where she had just like kidnapped her. But you know what? Why haven't we gotten Swimfan 2? Like, like how much could this movie actually cost? Like, can we please get it for streaming?
I'm surprised we didn't get like a direct-to-video sequel like 5 years later.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't understand why that didn't occur.
How many sequels did Wild Things get? For
like
Christ's
5.
Which
so many.
Which Wild Things, great movie, different movie, yes. But yeah.
Yeah, Wild Things became sort of like its own direct-to-DVD franchise, which it's really interesting which 90s movies that happened for. Because I also didn't that happen for the Drew Barrymore Poison Ivy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So why not Swimfan? Why not?
Poison Ivy's a wild movie.
I don't know. Swimfan doesn't even have a Blu-ray release. Do you think Disney that's like on the top of their things to do?
No, I mean of course not.
I could see it getting like is it Shout Factory that released The Crush? That was another movie I kept thinking of watching this one.
I mean, all of the 90s ones, right? I mean, like, Alicia Silverstone, it was, like, The Crush and The Babysitter. So, like, she very much came up in that early 90s, like, blonde Jezebel sort of stereotype. Mm. And then, there were, like, the movies about brunettes. There was Wild Things, and I think there was another one that I'm not remembering right now. There was, of course, Showgirls. Well, Cruel Intentions is the other brunette one. I mean, Cruel Intentions is your best example of, like, the blonde-brunette dichotomy. Past, like, the Archie comics, they were like, we're gonna pick up this mantle. But yeah, I mean, like, the 90s were very much the time where we were still sort of sticking to... It felt like a weird time for what people thought feminism was. Because on the one hand, it is very feminist to have, like, an evil female villain, right? Like, being bad isn't inherently gendered. So, like, to have a female villain is like, okay, this is, like, cutting edge and interesting and great. However, that all of the female villains were tied to, like, a sexual situation was not ideal. So you sort of saw, like, a little bit of creativity there, and also still that, like, heteronormative gaze that made these movies, like, you know, it would be badass if she also was wearing a corset the whole time.
Yeah. It just made me think about, because 2002, Brian De Palma's Femme Fatale came out, which was also critically, mixed. I know Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. Now I feel like it's gotten a much deserved resurgence. But yeah, that's another example of, and that's a movie that I love because I feel like, without spoiling anything, although there are a million twists in that movie, it is such a male-gazy movie, but then at the end of the movie, you realize that's part of the point, that De Palma's, like, even putting his own feet to the fire in terms of, like, you'll see something that is tittillating, but you didn't notice that the women in the movie were actually doing something behind, like, in plain sight the entire time. And then you also had Unfaithful, which is, in my opinion, Adrian Lyne's best film.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, like, yeah, even 2002, it was like, but Unfaithful made money, right? And, like, Diane Lane, I think she got an Oscar nomination for that.
I think Unfaithful made money. I mean, we're also not talking about Bound.
Bound,
but Bound was, like, very important for this time as well. So, like, Swimfan was, I think, following, like, an established tradition. It just also came out in that time where it felt like the aughts were trying to figure out, like, what are movies for teenagers going to be? Because I think we're all around the same age. I don't even know if I can remember any other, like, aughts teen movies.
Disturbia is a big one for me
yes.
when I was growing up.
Yes.
That's an interesting one, too. I mean, that's not like an erotic thriller, even though it is like a guy spying on neighbors.
It is a thriller, though. I mean, it does still follow... Yeah. Oh, man, Shia, right?
Yeah.
I had such a crush on Shia in that movie. Jesus.
He's really good in that movie, too.
He is really good in that movie. I mean, the problem with Shia has never been his acting. Like, the problem with Shia is literally everything else. But yeah, I mean, his acting has never been a problem. But all right, do we want to talk about, like, Swimfan in detail? What do you guys want do you guys want to discuss?
Let me break down some more stuff I have here. Number 1 song in the U.S. this week was Dilemma by Nelly featuring Kelly Rowland. Better Times.
Wow, yeah, okay.
Number 1 song in Canada this week is a remix of Elvis Presley's song A Little Less Conversation by Elvis Presley versus Junkie LX, which I do remember.
That's actually a really good remix.
Yeah.
Canada knew. Canada was like, in 20 years, Baz Luhrmann will release an Elvis biopic that is shockingly successful, and so we're just getting ready for it. Like, it's cool.
Yeah. I had to copy the Google plot because it's always deranged. Swimfan follows Ben Cronin, played by Jesse Bradford, who has it all. The admiration of his many friends, a terrific girlfriend played by Sherry Appleby, and he's on the fast track to an athletic scholarship. Ben's rock-solid, promising future... Okay, it's not that rock-solid. Promising future and romance is turned upside down by the arrival of Madison Bell, played by Erica Christensen. Madison, the new girl in town, quickly sets her sights on the impressionable Ben. While their first few meetings are innocent enough, the obsessive and seductive Madison wants more. ... much more.
Is Ben impressionable, or is he just like a horny ass 17-year-old?
Yeah.
Like, impressionable is such an interesting word. Like, it's not like, yes, she has a plan, but she's not, you know what I mean? It just, I don't know. That's an interesting word choice. Just say that, like, he was dickmatized and, like, let's just like, get on with it.
He was like, he's so impressionable. He says, I can't do this once, and then goes, all right, afterwards.
Yes, like, he, like... it's just like, I think it's like they meet in the hallway, right? Okay, so like, all right, so let's talk like plot.
A hallway where no other students are. Either.
No other students.
No one.
Oh, because she's
else.
late.
Yeah.
She's late for English.
Late.
Look, I was. Didn't matter. There are always people in the hallway in high school.
Oh yeah.
But again, this was like such a like high school tropey thing that you would have these like secret meetings in the hallway with no one else around. Like, that was very much like a My So-Called Life sort of thing.
Yes.
Yes. But yeah, so am I remembering correctly that actually the opening of this movie is her putting the lip balm on in the car, or is that just our introduction to her character? I don't remember the first scene.
We see her playing cello intercut with really boring PG-13 car sex between Bradford and Appleby. Yeah.
Yes.
And then her car passes, I think. I think it's supposed to be her car that passes, and she's... Later, we find out where she's playing the cello is the hospital room of her former boyfriend.
With, like, the shrine to their...
Exactly.
Potential relationship. Yes, I'd forgotten about that. Okay, so that's how we start. So we already get the sense that, like, she's bad, right? Because she's
she plays cello. No
she
one
plays
who
cello.
plays cello is not evil.
Everyone is bad who plays cello. But I also feel like it works to have the like sex scene interrupted, because you do have that like implicit who's getting between them through the editing of this scene. Okay, so that's the established beginning. And then that does make it funnier that he is so susceptible to her like light flirting. She's not even really going that hard.
She isn't. No.
And he like volunteers his help like to drive her home. She's like, no. And he's like, no, I insist. And it's like, so he's like kind of.
She says like 5 times I'm good, and he's like, no. And she's like, okay.
Right. We're not saying that we blame the victim, but we are saying that Jesse Bradford sort of did it to himself. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay?
I mean, even the scene where they have sex in the pool, he's like, "We shouldn't do this," and she's like, "No, it's okay. I want to." He's like, "Okay." Like,
and then she says, "It'll be our little secret, but not so little." Yes, it's great.
Yes. Yeah. I love that they shot the sex scenes first. That's actually
really
hilarious to me.
Just get it out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, Erica said that like basically, I don't know if this is the way for like everybody, but I think sort of their thinking was do it now before they like know each other too much and potentially hate each other, which is such an interesting way to like think about sex scenes in movies and TV, and like sort of cynical, I guess, but I also guess practical, because like what do you do if you're like weeks into shooting and the two leads despise each other? Like it's fine with a movie like Mad Max Fury Road, because like the tension between like Charlize and Tom Hardy, like they don't have a sex scene, it doesn't matter, and it like adds to their established relationship. But yeah, I can imagine loathing someone and then having to kiss them would probably suck.
Yeah.
It was interesting reading about how like Poulsen like like recut the scene, I think, based on like what Erica Christensen was asking, and that's like kind of nice to know. Like, I mean, you hear it's interesting to have like there's the Sean Bean discourse now where it's like he's talking about like, oh, I don't know if we need intimacy coordinators. It's like, no, this is exactly why you need intimacy coordinators.
Yes.
It's like to make sure actors are comfortable and feeling safe on sets, and taking their requests seriously.
It's really funny too, because I love the idea that at your job you could just like spontaneously do something to another coworker and like it's fine. What?
Yeah.
That doesn't work in any profession. I can't spontaneously like physically touch someone at work and like it's cool. But yeah, I did like reading that like the director sort of took her thoughts into account and that it felt somewhat collaborative. And it's always nice sort of knowing that about these movies, because you do also have the horror stories about like directors who insist upon like not simulated sex in films, and there's always that like potential dark side. So for like a teenage movie where they weren't teenagers but they were all like pretty young, that's reassuring to know. So so like Madison crashes into school, right? We see her like putting on lip balm. She just like rolls in late. And
that actually would have been amazing if she crashed her car into the school.
That would have been great.
Out. Yeah. Just strolled in as if it was like a normal thing to do.
Yeah. Do you guys not do this in this part of wherever you are?
I think it's New Jersey, right?
It was filmed in New Jersey, but I don't know. It is supposed to be New Jersey too, right?
Right, because when they get out and he almost runs her over and he's picking up all of her stuff, he has a New Jersey license plate, which,
yeah.
But
it took me forever. Sorry, just real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, I interrupted.
No, go ahead.
It did take me forever to find out where they were, because they're talking about, well, I'm going to be in Rhode Island and you're going to be in California. That's 3,000 miles away. And I was like, wait, where are they? And I think it takes like over an hour for there to be like an establishing shot where New York City is like in the distance or something. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I think I even had to Google it. I'm like, are they in New Jersey? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then Madison is supposed to be from like the South or whatever, because Clayton Crawford has that line. It's like, I want to hear that Southern accent. It's like, but like, I don't hear any trace of a Southern accent
at all.
None. It is funny that all of the men in this movie are just fucking idiots. Like that's
him especially. Time. He is pitch perfect as and also who just Yeah, who just sits around for like 5-10 minutes and is just like, so there's this new girl. I've heard that she's from here. She does this. I believe that she likes to do this as well. Like, aren't you guys supposed to be? Isn't Dan Hedaya supposed to be whipping your ass to be in the pool? Why do you care so much about this? Come on.
But also, what's so funny about like high school movies is like I don't think any of them have a real sense of how large high schools are.
No.
Yeah.
It's their little group.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's just their little, and that's true, right? Like you have a friend group in your high school. Like my high school is huge. I think there were like 800 people in our graduating class. Then you had maybe a group of like 5, 10, 20 friends. But it's so funny to start it off with like, there's this one new girl in my New Jersey high school. New Jersey is not like obsolete. Like it is. A lot of people live there.
It's also a movie in which nobody goes to class or has any homework at all. Like,
Correct.
I mean, I guess it is kind of a plus because then we didn't get like some fat scene of like, well, let's read Lolita in class today, and then how does it relate to the plot of this movie?
Sure.
I guess that's a plus, but it was funny to me where I was just like, apparently school is just a place where people hang out.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. Plus, we had people going to school in like the faculty, so did we really need it in this movie?
That's true.
Oh, that was a high school favorite of mine.
Yeah, the faculty is great. It was streaming on HBO Max like a couple months ago, and it was just such a joy to revisit.
I work at the Coolidge Corner Theater in Brookline, and we had a midnight showing of it right before the pandemic began, and I saw it with a bunch of friends, and we all realized that we all had some sort of sexual awakening as kids based on one
100%.
different member of that cast. Everyone had a different member of the cast that they were like, oh, wow, okay.
Things are happening that I don't quite understand. Yeah. No, the faculty was great. Shout out to Josh Harnett, who I think deserves more than what he currently has. And
he didn't deserve Hollywood Homicide. This is true.
I mean, the other thing too is that like his big comeback was supposed to be that Guy Ritchie movie that is now in like permanent limbo.
Oh yeah.
The one with like him and Aubrey Plaza and Jason Statham. Because like the distributor I think is like going under, so they haven't released it yet. And I think he's in Oppenheimer.
Yes, he is.
And then he was on Penny Dreadful for a few seasons.
Yeah, I mean, like he was very good on Penny Dreadful, and that was sort of the thing that I was just like, where did Josh Hartnett go? It sort of felt like Ashton Kutcher replaced Josh Hartnett, and that was like a cultural downgrade for us as a people.
Yeah, because like the last thing I saw him in was either like in theaters when these movies were out were like The Black Dahlia or Lucky Number 11, and then Ashton Kutcher fever did take over the nation after that because what happens in Vegas and
Killers.
Killers.
Oh my god. Wow, Killers.
Yeah.
Although I guess Ashton Kutcher also was around during that because he had The Butterfly Effect, which Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Like they definitely were like a collective, like it felt like in terms of like our tall brunette actors, like they were coming up at the same time. But it always felt like Hartnett was like willing to go darker than Ashton was.
Oh yeah.
And then we just sort of moved away from darker movies as
him
Hollywood.
Doing Butterfly Effect was like, wow, he's in a dark movie. It's like Josh Hartnett had been doing that.
Yeah, and like Ashton didn't do more of those. No. Right? Like it's like he just then went like the rom-com route.
He could have, because The Butterfly Effect made money, and like as a teenager, that movie was hot when I was a teenager.
I do remember people being weirdly, I do remember people being weirdly into that. But I will say that Josh wins because he was in Virgin Suicides, and that's better than
he's great in that.
Anything Ashton has ever done.
His haircut in Halloween H2O is pretty iconic.
Oh, I loved Dan Mecca's tweets about how he tried to have the Josh Hartnett H2O haircut and shared actual photos of it.
I was just like, there's some things you don't say in public, sir.
It's such a it's choppy, but like in a way that I don't understand. It sort of defies gravity. But I'm gonna Google it and look at it while we continue talking about Swimfan.
I thought it was interesting in the commentary, which they really didn't say anything of note, but it sounded like they were having a good time. Is that they took out a lot of the very obvious, like, she's a bad girl type of needle drop type of things. Like, because the scene in the hallway where he opens her locker, that was going to have, like, a kind of musical bed to it, and it's just dead silence. And also, like, the before the sex scene where he's just doing laps, it's just complete silence. And I noticed that a lot after listening to the commentary, and I was like, I gotta give him props for that. It's a very interesting way to not just very obviously tell the audience about it.
But then, like, it does open with, like, when Ben is living a semi-charmed life, he's, like, he's, like, tapping along to music on the guitar, and the music is like, all in all, it was a good day. It's like, okay, like the sun-dappled suburbia. I'm like, okay, I get it, movie. It's
the opening titles rule, man.
Yeah, I mean, but we've also gone so far down that, like, every scene has a soundtrack way of filmmaking, for which great. I blame Todd Phillips, that I appreciate some silence, right? I mean, Hangover, every scene in Hangover had, like, a pop song accompanying it. Yeah. And I just think that that's a lot of, like, streaming, Netflix, movie making as well. So I'll relish the silence. That's fine. And and I also think that it helps for swimming, too, because swimming is such a solitary activity that I sort of like just the rhythm of, like, someone cutting through the water, someone breathing. Like, there is a sort of concentration to swimming that I think the movie is beneficial when Madison arrives and, like, breaks that concentration, right? And that does sort of go back to the opening scene of, like, we're cutting her into their sex scene. Like, she is messing up their established routine and their established flow. And having silence, I think, helps accentuate that. But yeah, so she arrives, right? She's bad. Yeah. We immediately know she's bad. How do we feel about her, like, seductive methods? We laughed at how bad he is at standing up to them, but are they, like, good? I can never figure out if she's actually good at this or if he is just weak.
I don't know. Like, during the big diner scene, which is probably the most, like, dialogue heavy scene, where she's just where he's just like, I have something to say. She's like, you have a girlfriend? Yes, I do. And then she says something like, I should probably take you home, or something like that. And she says something about playing cello, and she's just like, I can go out of my body and nothing can hurt me, or whatever. And he's like, do you ever feel like you want to escape? She was like, yeah, but not now. Right now, I like where I am. He's just like, I should take you home. And then she was just like, I have an idea what we can do. And he's just like, okay, that sounds good.
Flattery and nudity is that basically her core tools to get him to do what she wants.
Yeah.
I mean, I do like that scene because it does actually feel, I think she walks a very good line in her performance between being conniving, which the movie, of course, has already telegraphed that she's going to be, and also being vulnerable. Like, I believe that she actually enjoys playing cello. I do believe that it is a safe haven for her. It's also just an emotion that she is weaponizing to seduce him, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Then right after, and then right after that, it goes right into gear. There is a nice shot where he drops her off, and there's like good 20 seconds of silence of her just watching his car move that's really good. But then the next day, there's a party at Amy's house, and then Madison has already introduced herself to Amy and is starting to get more and more creepy. And then she says, I left my underwear in your car, while Amy is going to the car to move it.
Who hasn't done that?
I know. But there's a very funny shot when Amy is coming out to get to, and Ben, like, interrupts her, and she's just like, yes, hello, yes. Yeah. He's like, it's been acting up lately, I'll move it. And I was like, it's been acting up? You just need to back it up, sir. But sure.
Yeah, didn't you just, like, drive around with her? Like, weren't you?
I don't understand.
You drove to the party?
One other thing that I noticed this time around, Amy apparently doesn't have parents.
No.
She says they're gone on vacation.
Oh, right.
And Clank Crawford has a scene where he's like saying, "There's gonna be a party and everything." And
did they go on vacation and just never come back? Because even towards the end, it's like you'd think her parents would be concerned about her getting kidnapped and everything. That is true.
I think it's like.
I think it's only like a week.
The worst week of this kid's life.
Yeah. Again, this is like a thing that movies are bad at, right? They're also bad at telling you how much time has passed. But I thought maybe max 2 weeks? Maybe?
Sure.
Maybe.
I mean, because it's like sort of a whirlwind from like when she arrives to when she starts sleeping with the other guy to then like tightening her hold on Bradford or whatever.
Right.
But I think it's like parents going on vacation for 2 weeks, I think, is sort of normal. Leaving your teenage daughter, maybe not so normal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, because I do remember Dana Day at the start where he says scouts are coming next week. So
yes. So it must be...
We don't know how long next week is, but we do see when the scouts come, and then it's probably a day or two after that is when everything ends.
So let's say like max 2 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Her parents decided to just take another week and didn't tell her. Yeah. And then
one other thing about the party scene is it's funny how like Kevin and Charlie and I, we were like texting about the color palette in this movie. Almost all of it is blue, and it's like as if like they were just like, this movie's about water, cool, I'm gonna make every scene blue. Even like the inside of Amy's bathroom looks like an aquarium and everything.
Yep.
Everything is the Romeo and Juliet aquarium scene.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, everything is blue. They really want you to be aware of it. Like, we're just gonna hammer it home. But I love high school parties in movies because, like, who has ever gone to a party that is like a high school movie party? They just do not exist.
I know, they don't exist.
It's usually like, if we go to my friend's room and be really quiet, I've got like half a bottle of something, and I think we'll be good.
All the high school parties I went to when I started drinking underage were just disgusting.
Just
the most filthy...
It's either really lame and something that I would enjoy. Like, it's either like watching Fight Club in your bedroom with like 3 friends, which was my 16th birthday party. Or it's like a scuzzy, disgusting, everything smells and someone already threw up party.
The first party I ever went to, there were bins on the floor in a basement that literally said "puke in me" in them.
Yeah, that's it. Like
and people did.
Yeah, that's the divide. It's not this like beautiful. Your parents are like very well off doctors or whatever, and you're doing this in like your beautiful home. I say that. However, I did actually go to school with someone who is the daughter of a much hated New York Times columnist, and she often threw parties that I did not attend because she was younger than me, but I often heard that they were sort of that sense of like, everything in here costs a lot of money and we're still gonna get fucked up. So I guess they do exist, just not in my personal
that reminds me of the party in Can't Hardly Wait where I forget her name, but she's just going around, hey everybody, you gotta use the coaster, there's this and there's this, and then
I will say probably the best high school party is the 10 Things I Hate About You, Julia Stiles, dancing on the table.
Of course.
Yeah, I think that's the best. But every 90s, early aughts teen movie had a party with varying degrees of realism.
Yeah.
All right, so the party is happening. The underwear scene is actually well shot and well done.
Yeah.
There's some solid tension there. I mean, do we really feel like Shiri Appleby had anything to do in this movie?
No,
but I can tell that I think she's trying.
I think she's trying. Yeah. Like, I think she's good. I watched Roswell at the time. I just think that it's like there's no space for her to actually have a personality.
No.
In this film.
And she's not allowed to really have any fun, which is kind of a bummer.
The one scene where I feel like she brings like kind of like a bit of color to her line readings is like when she's like having the talk with Ben on the benches on like the stair steps, and she's like saying, "I know that you know," and then she says like, "I know you're just like worried about like what we were talking about the other day. Everything's fine or whatever," and then she says, "That's my little speech," and like sort of giggles. It's like, oh, that's kind of nice. Like that feels like a nice like just sort of like human bit of like relief and like a a very rote conversation.
Yeah.
It feels very written.
She might be the only person who actually acts like a person.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
In this film. Because, that's not what Madison is going to do. Like, that's not what the role is. And then I think Bradford... It's funny, because we are comparing this so much to Fatal Attraction. I like Jesse Bradford. I think he's fine. But it makes me appreciate so much more what Michael Douglas brought to all of those movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I don't know if it's just like a matter of age, like when you're doing it with teenage characters, if there's sort of like less personality to the characters because they're so young, or if there's less that you know these actors from, so there isn't as much that you're sort of projecting on their performance as well. But just going back and thinking about like Douglas in this genre and what he brought to it is so different from like Cruel Intentions or this movie or just any of the teen movies that tried to do it. It's like, I do think that's an inherent shortcoming. As fun as these movies are, I do think that's the inherent, like, there's something about this that doesn't feel as well developed, and I just think it's because they're all so young.
One thing that always sticks with me about Fatal Attraction that I can't think of many other erotic thrillers doing, even though Fatal Attraction is so influential, that makes it more complicated before it becomes a bit of a cartoon at the end, is when Glenn Close starts going too far. Michael Douglas first calls the cops can't do anything, but then after the bunny is boiled, he approaches Ann Archer and was like, I think I know who did this. It was that woman who came to our house the other day. And she goes, what, did you have an affair with her? And he goes, yeah. Like, I'm always like, it does give us a little more sympathy for him to just be like, look, I fucked up. And of course Ann Archer says, get out of the house. But like, Jesse Bradford has so many opportunities to just admit this to Shiri Appleby, and he doesn't. And it's like, well, yeah, dude, you kind of deserve it at this point. Like, and, you know?
Like, the other thing, too, with Fatal Attraction is, like, I feel like that movie sells... I think it's because, like, Douglas is so good at playing sleazebags, but that movie, I think, sells the progression from him just being, like, kind of like a careless asshole who's, like, saying, like, all right, fuck off, I don't want to see you anymore, to then, like, straight up attacking Glenn Close. That movie, like... And, like, whereas when this movie has the scene where Jesse Bradford, like, tries to choke Erica Christensen, it doesn't... I don't know that, like, I buy that his character would, like, take that turn. Because I guess, like, the movie just doesn't really have much of a personality to him. I mean, it's like, tries to, like, glom on, like, these background details, like, oh, I had a drug situation, and my dad cheated on my mom, and I didn't... The dad cheating on the mom thing that he reveals at the end, it's like, well, that's, like, kind of an interesting idea for a movie, like, you know, becoming the thing that you said you wouldn't want to be in, the thing that you hate. But, like, it's literally, like, 13 minutes left.
Yeah. Like, if those things had come earlier, it would give you a greater sense of, like, who he was. But you're right, there isn't that sort of ingrained... Like, I wish we knew from the beginning to what degree of a fuck-up he was. which is not to say that, like, quote-unquote, like, good... quote-unquote normal people cannot also like break under pressure or make mistakes that they're not proud of or whatever. Like, I do also think that just life is sort of being unpredictable in a way that you don't even understand about yourself. But in the last act of the movie, it does sort of feel, just from like a writing, filmmaking perspective, that we're getting these explanations to like justify what we've seen rather than really complement what's already been established.
You could have even had a scene, like a throwaway line for the mom being like, oh, your father's trying to get back in touch with me or something at the beginning. Anything. Like, but instead it's like they were like halfway through filming and they were like, what if we threw this in there just to make it like a little like in there
slightly more believable, right? Exactly. So the party happens. Bradford is still like doing whatever. Do we just fast forward to the kidnapping, like the important part of this film?
But also there's the fantasticness of her obsessively IMing him as Swimfan
I forgot
86.
about the web, the like
paging
message board.
Him.
Yes,
the
naked photos.
Oh yes, of course. And then he
on a school at a school library computer, no less. That is very accurate, because I do feel like everyone was always trying to do some sus shit on those computers.
I always watched Homestar Runner on those computers, if you remember that Flash animation.
Yes,
Of
that's
course.
that's adorable. This movie was like, you know what we're gonna do on these computers? Porn. That's immediately.
And then he can't close the window when Sherry Appleby shows up.
Okay. Also relatable though, because the dial-up connection, it would freeze your computer. So that's also believable.
But it's like 5 seconds to close the computer. The scene it seems like it's
turn off the monitor.
And then it happens really quickly. Yeah, it made me think of it was a year later, but it made me think of the scene in Out of Time where Denzel Washington is trying to stop the fax from coming in. Is where he's like closing his monitors and also like unplugging the printer, saying like, "Oh yeah, it didn't come through properly. We have to print it again."
The way that it slowly unpixelates itself too, it almost like I don't know why, but I was like, is this like? It makes me think of like Harrison Ford in Blade Runner, doing like research like that.
See, it made me think of exactly. Computer enhanced, yeah. It also just made me think of Hackers, which
of course,
which also has Jesse Bradford.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jesse Bradford was like he was supposed to be like a dork in that one, right?
Well, because he was so young. I mean, I think he was like 12 or 13 in that movie.
Yeah, I read an interview with him where he said like he'd been acting since he was 8 months old. He was in like a Q-tip commercial when he was a kid, and it's like he would just like be a kid in movies. And
I love Steven Soderbergh, but I actually have never seen King of the Hill.
He's great.
Oh wow, yeah, you should get on that.
Yeah, funny that he and Christensen have both worked with Soderbergh. That was a connection I thought of.
They did talk about that in the commentary because they were talking about like, on this movie we had like 2 or 3 cuts, and then Bradford was just like, I think Soderbergh, I don't think he did many cuts, and she was like, no, not really. So, so they have that connection. But yes, the obsession starts to start. She puts steroids in his urine, which I'm very curious on how that happened.
I don't know how that happened.
Like I'm pretty sure when he breaks into her house, she has like steroids or something like that. But how she got that, who knows? And then that happens. He gets kicked off the team. He thinks Josh is involved of it. There's the amazing scene where Madison and Josh are making out, and she says his name is Ben. And he goes, my name's not Ben. Yeah.
And this is like, that's pretty great. And then, then his kiss off line is like saying, "Hey, you know what? Screw you. How about that?" And it's like, that's not really much of a
it's not that line. Impressive. It's not that good.
I got something to tell you. Get out of here. Yeah.
Exactly.
I also think her delivery in the trailer and in the context of the film of her going, "Get back here," is so funny.
Oh, it's so good.
So funny.
But the editing in that scene, we haven't brought it up, but Sarah Flack edited this, who also edited The Limey, and also edited Blair Witch 2. So 2 classics. There's apparently in the commentary they were saying while she was editing it that it just had a random jump cut, and she was like, "Oh, my bad," and he was just like, "Hold on, we might want to try that and also do it some more." And then it's very Limey-esque, which talking about Swimfan is kind of funny. But and then there's the scene where he's swimming afterwards after they have sex, and he's going in and out of the water, and it's like a tinge of remembering the sex scene and stuff like that. It just has actually like pretty interesting editing, because even given a movie like this, she still knows how to edit the shit out of it. But it has that very long going around the car, and then she anytime that her and Ben are talking, and he's like, "I'm with Amy," and then it'll do like another a take of it where he says Amy again, and she's like looking around, and then it'll be like, and then it'll cut again. It's kind of silly, but it's kind of inspired. I kind of
and there are 2 sequences that are really good in terms of like how they're edited and shot. I do think that the first sex scene is really good, because we do have the long follow of like Bradford and Erica Christensen as they get in the pool, and that sort of does a good job with like long takes and sort of building whatever tension that is between them. And am I also remembering that like in the hospital, doesn't Erica Christensen go to the hospital to like maybe kill off Sherry Appleby?
Yes, because she ran her off the road, but she's fine, and she's trying to.
I think she's trying to finish her off, and I think there's like a dolly move in there.
Oh, with like the intercom shot?
That's the intercom, yep.
Yeah, with the intercom. And like that was also, so like there were also a couple moments in this movie where I was like, y'all knew what you were doing. Like, this was perhaps unintentional, campy trash. But from a technical perspective, you had a grasp of, like, what to do. But yeah, those two moments stick out to me. And yeah, the editing, how often we get these, like, double cuts. Almost like we're in Madison's head as she's trying to, like, reprocess everything through her own perspective. I mean, it is, there is stuff there to talk about. So, yeah. Okay, all right. So then the kidnapping, right? So then she, like, goes to the hospital. She gets Sherry Appleby, and she brings her back to the pool.
No, what first happens is, because she's been, the thing that we maybe should, like, briefly go back to is that she's been living with her cousin, who named Dante.
Dante.
Who, I guess has, like,
talked about Dante.
I think he's deaf, because I think you see him wearing a hearing aid, or he has, like, some sort of
hearing disability.
And she's really mean to him, saying, like, do you have company, Dante? Oh, no, of course not, because that would mean you'd have friends or something.
So good.
And he's the one who, like, gives Bradford, like, the information, like, the photos of, like, the ex-boyfriend and everything that she put in the hospital and put on life support, who was, like, a baseball prospect, and he takes him to the hospital to work there. And then what happens is Bradford takes the ex-boyfriend's high school Letterman jacket, puts it on Dante, and then he lures her out into, like, the parking garage where, like, Ben confronts her with a scalpel, and he's, like, saying, "Oh, you don't think I'm gonna kill someone? What's one more?" And, like, it's like, that's where Bradford's straining a little bit, I think. And then one of the friends that Bradford has, like, is videotaping the whole thing, and then I'm, like, thinking, okay, so I guess the movie's not over yet, because if that's the ending, that's pretty anticlimactic. And then Christensen, while she's being, like, taken in by the cops, she, like, because the cops are, like, just dum-dums who, like, spill their coffee on, like, paperwork and everything.
Have their gun on.
Also, why is there a cop in the back seat with her?
I have no idea. I have no idea. And his gun is just over.
That's not procedure. That's not correct.
Yeah,
that's very funny.
Yeah, and then the cruiser, like, comes by, like, the house and everything. There's, like, a doorbell that rings, and Ben, like, takes the longest time to go downstairs and, like, answer the door and, like, looks around. It's like, where is everyone? And then he goes back up to his room and then he goes into the kitchen and finds his mom knocked out. And then
I had totally forgotten the sequence of events. But yes, there are a couple of, like, twists.
Oh, yeah.
Until
he kills, like,
to
all
of
those cops.
I even got really confused at one point, because where do they go when she runs Amy off the road? Even though I just watched this movie, like, last night. Because they go somewhere. And then it was like, people are saying you did it. You ran Amy off the road. And I was like, wait, what?
Because she was wearing a hat and was driving his car.
But then I was like, wait, how did they think... Where did he... It wasn't his car, was it? And then I went, wait, they left somewhere? And left his car there at her house? I was like, what? I had to go back and rewind it. I was like, why would they do that?
I mean, I can sort of understand the rationale there.
But, like, she's done so much stuff, and then he just, like, leaves the car.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the bigger issue here, is that because, like
why would you trust that?
The writing for Bradford's character is just sort of hollow. So it's just, like, things are happening because he doesn't make choices that make sense, rather than in, like, a Fatal Attraction or a Basic Instinct or whatever, where, like, he still sort of, the main male character sort of has agency, and she's, like, sort of outsmarting him. With this, Bradford's just a moron, and so she's able to, like, run roughshod over, like, what an absolute idiot he is.
Okay. Yeah. One of my favorite line readings, and then we'll talk about the ending, is whenever he's talking to his mom and she's like, "Are you doing drugs again?" And he was like, "Would you believe me if I said no?" and blah blah blah. And he goes, "What I need is for everybody to leave me alone so I can get my life back."
I love it. You know, who hasn't felt that way? Leave me alone, Mom.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about the fact that he is apparently working as a nurse? He's someone who has had problems with drugs.
As a nurse, or is he just like an aide?
I don't know,
like,
but
volunteer. I guess he
has a history of drug abuse, and he's, like, got a job where he's just handing out drugs. Yeah, I guess
they gave him the benefit of the doubt until
I feel like this is one of those, like, we're supposed to believe that this is a small town, And so I think, like, if we're
Very
supposed to
much
believe
so.
that this is a small town and, like, she's the only new kid or whatever, then yeah, I could see his, like, doctor mom or whatever pulling strings to get him a aide position.
Also, that old man that he treats is like every line out of his mouth is so perverted. We're just like, how you doing today? Just give me a Viagra and a nurse under 70. I'm just like, Jesus.
But Ben isn't very nice to him too. He says like, and he says like, I don't think I'd be able to find anyone your age bracket who's still alive or whatever. It's like, you don't need to rub it in or whatever.
I will also say that when he gives him when she mixes up the drugs and he gives him the bad drugs and he just walks out and you immediately hear beep, I cackled so hard last night.
He immediately almost died.
He immediately almost dies. It's just
okay. So Amy gets kidnapped from their house, and then he's driving trying to find out where she is, and then he gets a page that says "Want to go for a dip," and then he spins out in the middle of the road and goes there, and then Erica Christensen is playing for not only the cheap seats but the people in the parking lot during the scene where she is just hollering, just oh, it's so good. And Amy's chained up to the chair. She throws her in, and how does he get her uncuffed? Because he has the hairpin that he used to unlock her Madison's locker at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So thank God he met
all
Madison.
comes full circle.
Yeah.
Yes.
If he never would have cheated on her, he never would have saved his girlfriend. You know what? It's fine.
He had to cheat in order to save. So.
Chekhov's hairpin.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like that's the thing that's foreshadowed, but then there's all these other details in the movie. I'm sorry if I'm going back, but like it's funny how like we get like 2 scenes of him feeding the dog, and I thought like just like with these kind of movies, I feel like pets are often like collateral
at
damage.
risk.
Like it's like single white female, the dog gets thrown off a balcony. I thought like, is like the dog gonna get poisoned? Is that why we're seeing him feeding the dog all the time? So it's like no, feeding his
he just
dog.
likes to feed the dog, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it was laid on thick whenever she gets into the pool and she's like, I can't swim, can you teach me? And I feel like if with this type of movie they would have nailed that down a lot more at the end when he throws her in and she obviously can't swim. So I give it that, I guess. Her trying to just bludgeon both of them with a
what is
so
it?
bad at it. It's like a pool net or a lacrosse stick. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a pool net or whatever.
Yeah,
It's so funny.
I also expected her to have one more, and then Ann Archer to shoot her in the head after that. But
I do like that while you get the shot of after Ben saves Amy, like he's performing CPR, and you can hear in the background like the splashing is like Madison's like trying to dog paddle and everything, and then it eventually just sort of fades on the soundtrack. It's like, oh yep, she's dead, and like that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I do like the commentary the director John Polson said. He was just like, yeah, once she's dead, it's done. They wanted me to like kind of give like 5-10 minutes of, they're gonna be all right, and it's just like once she's dead, the movie's done. So we just had a quick shot of him at a swim meet being like, man, I used to do that, and then I'm gonna drive off with Amy, and it doesn't look like we're all the way back together, but we are together, so that's cool. And then it just ends.
It ends super abruptly. It ends like
it's so
mid
abrupt.
handhold. He like holds her hand, goes to kiss it, and then I think it's like, but like cuts to like the end credits.
The
chorus comes up.
It's funny, like revisiting movies from the 90s. It feels like abrupt endings were just a thing of the time.
Yeah.
Like the story's over. Like we don't need to wrap it up. Like I was rewatching Dolores Claiborne, and that also has like a very like abrupt, like okay, we're done ending.
Yeah.
But it was funny to speak to Erica about the possibility of their being a sequel, because I think the movie leaves it open. Do we definitively end on her being dead? I feel like we don't. Do we?
It's like the bubbles. There's like they look out and there's like the little bubbles like whoop, like coming, and then like her body just sinks down. I mean, unless like she can hold her breath really well or whatever.
Yeah. Unless we had one more like look into the pool and she's gone. But I always think about how like
that would have been amazing.
Yeah,
that would have been so funny.
That would have been like Soul Survivors.
That would have been great. Yeah. And I feel like if we were able to retcon like Ian Malcolm, who was clearly dead at the end of Jurassic Park, into being alive, then like Madison could still be out there, just like biding her time, chilling, waiting.
Yeah. Roxana, you got to go. We're gonna nerdy it up some more, but
cool.
we really would want to recommend that you watch Soul Survivors.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
It has Liza Dushku. It has who else is in it?
Sage
Moore,
Casey Affleck.
This cast sounds amazing. I'm not
Luke
even...
Wilson as a priest. It's
great.
terrible, but
no,
please
it sounds
watch it.
fantastic. I mean, Eliza, perfect. Wes Bentley,
Oh, she's amazing in it.
So thankful that he beat heroin and is now like back at it. And then the less said about Casey Affleck and how he's disappointed me, the better. So.
Well, he dies in the movie. So
okay, that's
at the start, so you're fine.
That's fine. Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.
Oh,
yeah, thank you so much for
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so
much. All right, until next time.
Okay, let's get back into it. Yeah, since we only had an hour with her, I wasn't gonna do the directed by, starring by, all of that. I just wanted to get as much talking with her as we could.
Of course. Yeah.
Directed by John Paulson. Prior, he acted in Mission Impossible 2. Do you guys remember him in that movie?
I do not.
He plays... I looked it up on IMDb. It could be wrong, but he was like 5th build? 6th build? Something like that.
Really?
I mean, there are Australians in that movie, like Richard Roxburgh is like the henchman whose face is stolen by Tom Cruise at the end of the movie, but like...
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember him in that.
He's 6th build as Billy Baird.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Build above Brandon Gleeson. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I've only seen the movie like twice. I don't remember it. But prior to this, he directed Slam Sunset in 1999. After this, directed Charlie's favorite movie, Hide and Seek, from 2005.
A movie I saw on my 14th birthday with a bunch of friends.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
He now directs and produces television, including Law & Order Organized Crime episodes this year. So he's out here with the Law & Orders.
Yeah. I will say it was funny reading one of the Erica Christensen interviews where she talked about like, John was like such a great director. I was so excited to work with him, and then just was thinking like, were you like a big Slam Sunset fan or something?
It does seem on their commentary that they all had a good time, and he seemed like a good director, and they had a good time.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Written by Charles F. Bowl and Philip Schneider. They've really not done anything else. Starring Jesse Bradford as Ben Cronin. I thought it was interesting how Amy is the only one that they don't say her last name, but you see her last name when she's admitted into the hospital or whatever. But everybody's just like, oh, Ben Cronin and Madison Bell. How are you doing, Madison Bell and Ben Cronin?
Oh yeah, and that's the other thing that I find like really obnoxious in some teen movies. It's like saying the letter is for swimming, Madison Bell. I'm like, did teenagers really like call each other by like their full names? I'm like that just it sounds so clunky whenever people try to do that. Like
it was either the first name or the last name. I definitely had friends who called me Nash, or friends where I called them by their last name, but not both. Yeah.
And they wouldn't be like, oh, what's your name, and you say your first and last name. That's weird. Bradford, prior to this, King of the Hill 1993, which we talked about, Romeo and Juliet 1996, Bring It On in 2000, the same year as Swimfan was in Clockstoppers, another childhood favorite of mine. After this, a 9-episode stint on The West Wing. He was in Flags of Our Fathers in 2006, and bringing it up again, 17 episodes on the Shooter television adaptation.
Oh wow!
Which we've all seen.
Yeah, every episode.
What was that on? Was that on Stars or
TNT,
Showtime?
I have no fucking idea.
Wow. TNT was just like, that was a movie, we'll make a TV show about it. Shooter, Snowpiercer, maybe
Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Lethal Weapon?
Crash. They made a TV show about Crash.
Crash was Stars. Lethal Weapon was Fox, I believe. Which you know who was on Lethal Weapon? Clayton Crawford.
Oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Which he got fired off of because he was a fucking asshole who put people's lives at risk. But yeah.
Huh. Okay. I should have just asked my dad. My dad would have been like, "It's on Fox. What are you talking about? I've seen every episode." Yeah. Erica Christensen as Madison Bell. Prior to this, an episode of Freaky Links. Do y'all remember that?
No, what is that?
It was a year after the Blair Witch Project. One of the creators was Greg Hale, which was a producer on the Blair Witch Project. And it's like, in the plot description, it's like, this is a sequel adaptation kind of thing to the Blair Witch Project, where Ethan Embry's brother dies, but then he finds him on the internet to find that he's not dead. I watched this when it aired because of the Blair Witch connection, and all of the episodes are on YouTube, and I will probably go through it.
Is it good? Like, this sounds maybe kind of interesting.
I don't know. It was 22 years ago. I was just
shit.
like...
Not to backtrack, but Clayton Crawford was also on the TV show Rectify, which I fucking loved.
Oh, I heard that's really good. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I completely forgot. He's actually very good on that show. He's an asshole, which helps. But yeah, that was a much critically beloved, and justifiably so, amazing series on the Sundance Network, I think, that absolutely nobody watched. But it's about what's his name? Aiden Young. It was on death row for 20 years for supposedly killing his girlfriend, and then new evidence comes out that shows that he probably didn't do it, and it's him rehabilitating himself back into normal life. It's a downer for sure, but it is like one of the best shows of the past 10 years.
I really
gotta check that out.
It's on AMC Plus right now, so I'll check that out.
It's fantastic. Could not recommend it highly enough. Some of the best acting you'll ever see on any show ever. And
how's that?
Cameron's also great.
How's that stack up to the acting in Freaky Links? You don't know. You haven't seen Freaky Links. It's also funny. Freaky Links was created by Greg Hale and also David S. Goyer, but his name isn't David S. Goyer on the created by. It's an anagram. It's really weird.
Oh, wow. David Yoger or something? Like, is that what it is?
It is. Let me pull it up. It's very funny, actually. But also prior to this, Christensen was in Traffic, of course.
I was thinking, like, what if this is like a semi-sequel to Traffic where she just runs away from being the drug czar's daughter and just decides, you know what, now that I'm sober,
yeah,
I'm gonna have some fun.
the pseudonym for David S. Goyer is Ricardo Festiva.
Oh,
don't know why.
Festiva.
Yeah, do not know why. A TV show from the 5-member Haxan Films team collaborated with screenwriter David S. Goyer and the Puppet Masters about a webmaster who looks for the weirdness and shares it with his internet viewers. Hell yeah. Back to Christensen. After this, The Perfect Score in 2004, which Bryden said was a masterpiece. Flight Plan in 2005. I will watch The Perfect Score.
I saw it in theaters. I don't remember a thing about it.
I texted Charlie. I said, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to see it so badly. And then, when I was in college, it was on Tubi, and I tried watching it and then turned it off, like, 30 minutes in. I was like, wow.
I wanted to go see Return of the King for, like, the 3rd time, and then I had a friend who wanted to see Perfect Score, and I was like, fine.
Flight Plan in 2005, which I did see in theaters, did not care about.
She's barely in that. She's kind of just like off to the side most of the time.
I do not remember her in it. Episode of Law and Order SVU in 2008, the television show Parenthood, which she's on pretty much every episode, and joined forces with Soderbergh again and Kimmy this year.
Which she's barely in it. She's mostly just a voice.
Shirley Appleby as Amy Miller. Prior to this, an episode of Freddy's Nightmares in 1988, which is funny. Roswell from 1999 to 2002. After this, Havoc in 2005. Have y'all seen that?
Yes, I have not seen in high school. It's not good.
I've heard it's wild. Where it's like Joseph Gordon-Levitt and is it Channing Tatum that are like
Channing Tatum's
gang
like
members?
Barely in it. Mike Vogel is like the main guy, and like he's like after he gets dissed by some like Latino guys, he tries to like go and kill him at the end or something like that. It's like it's really bad. And then there's like, I don't know. It's not a very fun movie because there's like sexual violence and stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's like not good. But like there is like a lot of like embarrassing scenes where it's like a bunch of white kids trying to like talk like with lingo, and it's like, jeez, you think you're saying so? And it's like saying, well, you know, parents, they just don't understand what's going on, and it's like.
Will Smith told us this in '88. We already know that. She had 2 appearances on SVU. She was on a show called Unreal on Lifetime about making a reality show, and past and future guest Michael Snydell said that the first season is actually worth checking out. I was like, I've never heard of this show, but sure. Also, Kate Burton, Dana Dea, Jason Ritter, and playing top tier jock dick Clay Crawford. Trivia. There wasn't much trivia I could find, honestly. Erica Christensen took cello lessons for 3 months. She said it was extremely hard. She said in the commentary, she was like, yeah, I took the lessons, but that's not me playing, obviously. I listened to the commentary track, which wasn't very informative, but it was nice. Everybody seemed to have a good time, plus talking about making it, so yeah. I didn't get to talk about that. This was my first favorite movie, and I do remember watching it, renting it the day it came out, and like I said, my brother would not take me to the theaters because he thought it looked dumb, and I remember watching it and be like, that's the best movie ever. She dies at the end, and he was like, what the fuck, I'm gonna watch it. And I was just like, you wouldn't even take me to the theater, why do you care? I remember that.
I have a friend who I work with at the Coolidge who when she was a teenager and she would sneak out of the house, she had like 3 VHS tapes, and one of them was Swimfan, and she would always put Swimfan on when she was sneaking out to party and do drugs, which is awesome.
I've thought about that. So yeah, you've mentioned this, I think, in private conversations we've had, and that's a great story. But it also makes me think that's like not the best movie to use as your cover because it's so short.
It's so
like,
short.
You have to like be running. It's like shit. Oh, the movie.
Yeah.
Sorry, so fan. I gotta go back now. And, like,
Yeah. I think her parents probably went to bed, but they were probably like on their way to bed, being like, "Oh, she's watching Swimfan again, huh?" And then just like conking out for the night.
Well, should have done a DVD, so that they were just like, she really loves that DVD menu of Swimfan when that song repeats every 20 seconds.
I was also talking to a friend at work. I think I texted you guys this, but no one on the show has heard it yet, where I was talking about, I have to watch Swimfan for the pod, and one of my friends just went, "Isn't that the movie with Charlotte Rampling?" And I was like, "You mean Swimming Pool?" And I was like, that would be a completely different movie if Charlotte Rampling just shows up in high school. They all just assume she's a new girl in school. Jesse Bradford and her have sex, and then it's Charlotte Rampling terrorizing Jesse Bradford and a bunch of teenagers for 80 minutes.
Yeah. And it also
and that's like a Strangers with Candy situation where they're all like, "Yeah, the new girl in high school." Like,
Well, it would be funny because we were also talking about how like how young or old some of the actors look in this, where it's like saying, "Oh, I guess Erika Christensen could pass for like playing the teenager." Meanwhile, like Jason Ritter, who's like 22, has like facial hair and looks like an adult, just like stuck in high school or whatever. And it's like just like kind of weird, like how everyone's like, and just like having gone, it's funny like. Before, like, when I would watch teen movies before going to high school, like, I'd just be like, "Oh, yeah, this is, like, what teenagers look like." And then I would go to high school, I'm like, everyone's, like, fucking shrimp here. They look like...
Everybody's 4 foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that one kid who's like, "I grew a beard over summer," and everybody's like, "Whoa!" Yeah. There's that funny scene wherever Madison shows up when... Bradford is swimming, and he like pokes his head out, and he's like, "Whoa!" because he like jump scares her, and she's wearing like a red leather skirt and is making out with Josh to like get back at him or whatever. And then after he does that, Jason Ritter's like, "Hi, hey, how's it going?" And then he walks out. He doesn't go to the locker room. He just walks out of the building after talking to him.
It seems like he must have had some scenes on the cutting room floor. Jason Ritter just seems too pronounced in the beginning and just doesn't do anything for the rest of the movie.
I watched there wasn't much deleted scenes. It was mostly just like, we had the scene that went on a little bit longer, like the starting scene with Ben and the dog and his mom that went on a little bit longer, and he was just like, it was in the script. It kind of phrased it as if like his mom is like kind of jealous that he has like a scholarship and that he has a girlfriend and whatnot, and it was just like we just decided to get rid of this. And then he had another scene with his mom after he's like in his room and he's looking at Madison's like journal or whatnot. After he looks at that, his mom comes in and talks to him again. And then there's the scene where Sherry Appleby is saying that like, I left something in your locker, but also Madison left something in his locker as well. That card, there's a scene where it shows her making that card like in spin class or some such shit, and then like walks outside, and the one girl who has the video camera at the party, and then that's foreshadowing to when she has a video camera at the hospital, I guess.
Fascinating.
But she like walks outside and gets on a fucking moped with her, and the director was just like, we tried to give her lessons on how to ride it, but she was really bad. And if you watch it, she's just like fucking jerking around the entire time. Didn't know how to drive it. It's very funny. But I mean, everything they edited or cut out, it was just like, I understand. Like, it's 85 minutes for a reason. They cut out everything they could.
All of the adults are just as stupid as the kids, too.
Besides Dan Hedaya.
Besides Dan Hedaya. He knows, well, I mean, like, he's immediately, like, I guess it is the right thing to be like, you're off the team, pack up your shit and go. But, like, the mom acts like a lawyer. And
she pretty much plays Amy's mom, because she's just like, they just brought Amy in. It's just like, there's only one hospital in this entire city, okay?
I also laughed so hard when they go to see Madison's old boyfriend, and the one the nurse goes, "Why you kids don't wear seatbelts? I don't know. His girlfriend did. Walked away without a scratch." I think that's her only line.
So I guess we're supposed to assume that, like, maybe he was abusive or whatever, and that I don't know.
That was like the imagined backstory, but like I don't think there's really, Christensen talked about how like that was like the backstory she maybe imagined. Do you get any sense if that's what the boyfriend was like in the movie?
I mean, that would have also made it more psychologically interesting if she wasn't just insane. She was. It's a cyclical cycle of abuse that's going on, but the movie's not interested in that.
No, not at all.
So we assumed that like they were driving. She like unbuckled him and then like veered the car off the road or something like that, I guess. But yeah, that doctor there is definitely laying out a lot of information, which is very weird. Yeah, the steroid scene, I do. That's such a fascinating scene where Dan Hedaya comes over and talks to them. And Bradford is like actually reacting like pretty good. He's like laughing and like, I can't believe this is happening. And he goes up to Josh and he's just like, "Do you have to do with this?" He's like, "You're losing it, man. You're losing it."
He does that hand gesture.
Yeah. And then he just like pushes Josh, and then Josh throws him in the pool, and then the announcer's just like, "Ben Cronin has been disqualified," and he's just like floating in the pool, like as if shit couldn't get worse.
Attention, Marge Simpson. We have your son in custody. Attention, Marge Simpson. We also have your older, fatter, balder son in custody. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
What were you saying, Brendan?
Oh, I don't know. I just feel like a lot of the scenes in this movie, they feel like they're going to be big deal, where it's like, oh shit, his girlfriend is coming around the corner, so he has to close the computer. Or like, oh, he's been like pushed into the pool by one of his best friends or something like that. And it's like, every scene just sort of kind of like fizzles out where it's like, okay, I guess it wasn't that big a deal.
They don't even seem like friends, honestly.
No, it's like frenemies, I guess. Where it's like, they're like, it's like kind of passive aggressive.
Yeah, because once he learns the scouts are coming and they're like in the locker room before, he's like, "So, Madison Bell." Yeah. He's like, I haven't
Crawford impression. That's like pretty
because he's just like, I think Bradford says something like, "I'd never seen you here this early before," so it's like he's a slacker about swimming, but once he hears the scouts are coming, he's gonna do it, and he wins the competition when the scouts come.
The really funny detail is like it cuts from like Crawford winning at the swim practice and everything, having the best time, and it cuts to him like at the party. He's like smoking and drinking a beer and everything. It's just like the shittiest like.
I was thinking that too. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. Because then, which part is it? Because there's a part where I forget what it is, but it's one of the shots where Madison is like 3 floors up on a building, just like watching everything happen, and then the next scene is whenever it's Ben and Amy are at Amy's work, I believe, and then Madison, I assume, walks in there and tells her that he cheated on you. That scene kinda is so melodramatic, but I kinda still, Sherry Appleby, that's her best part of the movie, is her reacting to that.
Also, I completely forgot. It seems like this time around, there's like, feels like a good 20 to 30 minutes where Christensen has like no dialogue. She's just this specter,
omnipresent of evils.
Just like looming over. She's, like most slasher villains, she's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Just happens to be conveniently wherever everyone else is.
I mean, it's the kind of movie where like a cart will pass and then like a person will be able to just like vanish into thin air like after it passes, and it's like, no one runs away that quickly. Well, I thought that even with the take that I liked with the swimming pool, where I'm like, she gets undressed awfully quickly. She's already in the pool, and just it does cut. Breakaway dress.
It does cut, and I'm like, because there's no way she would have just been like,
There's that one really weird scene where I'm just like, what? Why? Where he's walking through the school and he just like passes a bunch of lockers, and then he goes into the hallway and he sees her at her locker, and he like backs away to like hide from her, and then 2 seconds later looks again while she's very obviously looking at him, and I was just like, what was your deal here, man? She obviously spotted you.
I think also we talked about this scene a little bit, but the scene where he does threaten Madison after the steroids that he goes after her?
No, it's after he gets fired.
He does threaten her, which is awful, and then she says, okay, I'll back off, and he says, "Good girl," and I'm like, Jesus.
You're not mentioning the great line where he starts choking her and she goes, "You should have told me you liked it rough."
Oh right, Jesus Christ.
That's like the nastiest the movie gets, I guess, because it's PG-13. Like that's like kind of the thing that this is not the worst movie we've covered on the pod and everything. Like, it's totally passable, like, as, like, an 80-minute movie, but, like, it does... I feel like it stands off a lot of the rough edges with, like, the sex and violence and everything else, where, like, she almost kills the hospital patient. She, like, tries to kill the girlfriend. It doesn't work and everything. It's, like, nothing... The worst the movie gets is, like, there's the choking scene, and then, like, the shitty jock gets killed and everything off screen. It's, like, the movie feels like it's not going nutty enough, like,
which is wild because the rating reasons are mature thematic elements and disturbing images. I'm like, where's the disturbing images? I mean, we get a quick
it is also weird considering John Polson's next movie, Hide and Seek, was rated R, and there's no sex in it. Like, this is far more like
I remember Hide and Seek being very tame too.
It is very tame. I think it's because Robert De Niro finds Amy Irving in a bathtub full of blood at the beginning because it's supposed to imply that she slit her wrists, but like that's really it.
Is there like a lot of swearing? I mean,
no, there's only like one F-bomb, I think.
This movie doesn't even have a PG-13 F-bomb, I don't think, which is
it doesn't.
Disappointing. I feel like that opportunity was missing. Like that should have been like Erica Christensen. I think could have nailed that, but
yeah, she should have slipped that in at the end when she's screaming.
She's, I think, the one kind of element that feels like kind of like unhinged in a truly entertaining way, where like, you know, with like those line reads, just like, she's not good enough for you, Ben, and like but also like having the expected eyebrow, it's just like, is there a chance that maybe you might want me still? Like, it's like, that's like, those notes in the performance are very fun, but like, everything else in the movie is like a little too anodyne, I feel like.
Also that moment where she's like, see over there? That's where we made love. Yeah. Also, her character doesn't. I mean, obviously, she's not supposed to make sense. She's supposed to be crazy, but like, but it's like that whole. But like, tell me you love me. It doesn't have to mean anything. And then like later on in the movie, she's like, but you told me you loved me.
She's like, yeah, you told me to. Yeah.
Yeah. Another line reading I like where I think she is having fun is like when he shows up. It's pretty early on when she shows up at his house and meets his mom, and he's like, we need to like slow down here. And she's just like, what, we're friends? And he's like, yeah, we're just friends. And she goes, friends are happy for each other when they show up and give you flowers. Like, what's the problem?
That's a scene 1000% just lifted from Fatal Attraction. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. It's the scene where she shows up when Anne Archer's selling the house and Glenn Close just shows up. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because when I watched Fatal Attraction for the first time, I was just like getting a lot of Swimfan vibes from this. And then I rewatched Swimfan and I was just like, oh boy.
Just trying to think. I mean, what did you think of the music? I feel like this is like the thing.
Yeah,
like,
kicks ass.
Yeah?
Yeah, it kicks ass.
Certain bands listed in the soundtrack section of IMDb, Allergic and Regurgitator.
Bush was like the one band name that I recognized. Is that the song that's like playing? What's the song that's playing when he's like? It's like a super sappy like acoustic guitar ballad when he's like dumped by his girlfriend. He's sadly eating an apple in the quad. Like that's.
And even Dante won't sit with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. Like the movie's just like kind of like a little too sappy and like, you know, just mopey and everything to like really be like kind of a truly unhinged like teen thriller. I feel like there's like. It's
too, I agree with you, Bryden. It needed to let its trashier elements just, like, if it was R-rated, if it was, like, you know, a little sleazier, a little trashier, like, it feels like it's afraid of, it's funny because this is the type of movie that is supposed to be, like, a sleazy, guilty pleasure, and it feels like a movie that's afraid to offend anyone at the same time.
Yeah, like, and, like, I don't want the movie to be, like, grossly offensive. Like,
but like, I want something more than just sanitization.
The movie I thought of that, like, is, like, well, it's R-rated, so I guess it's able to go, like, a little more buck wild, is, Fear, which is, like,
of course.
That's, like, teen movie, and, like, that's, like, a movie where, like, the sex is like truly out of control, where it's like the finger banging to wild horses by the Sundays and everything.
Yeah.
Or like Mark Wahlberg just like truly like snapping necks and like screaming into fisheye lens keyholes and everything. And William Peterson is also very and that movie does like have sort of like a little bit more going on in the commentary about like, you know, sort of like men controlling women and it, like, you know, both like with the fathers and the boyfriends. It's like, oh, that's like a little interesting. I mean, there's some gross sexual violence in the movie that like I don't think was not necessary at all, but like that movie is, and like some of the kills in that movie are like truly like just like whoa, like this is bananas and everything. So yeah, that's a better like version of this kind of obsessed teen romance movie, I think. But I guess with the R rating, it's allowed to have that.
Yeah. One other very, very minor detail, but it always makes me laugh when cops show up and their car just says police on it. just no town, no nothing.
We are police, yes.
We are police. It always makes me think of the Naked Gun joke where they just show up to see O.J. Simpson at the hospital and it just says the hospital on the building.
And the cop who's hounding Jesse Bradford is an actor named Nick Sandow, who was like the warden, I think, in Orange is the New Black, Caputo, which I watched.
Oh my god, you're right.
Yeah, he has a little bit more hair in this one.
Yeah,
and he's the guy saying like, don't leave town or whatever. Really quickly, I'm gonna have to go soon, but the thing. Because you mentioned Michael, who has also seen Swimfan, he wanted us to talk about the pager that Ben has throughout the movie. So I guess the thing I theorized about was like maybe I don't know if this is like like something I pick up from like crime movies from this era where it's like people using pagers for like illicit criminal activities and everything. Like The Wire comes out in 2002 and they're using pagers and that both the cops and like the dealers. I guess is Ben using that pager still because he has it from his days when he was trying to score drugs or whatever. I mean,
I guess, but
I
also
don't know.
It's just like who like 17, 18-year-old is like, yo, one, how did
Page
he get
me.
his yeah, he was just like, look, we're just friends, but here's my pager number if you ever need me, and do not page me 3 times while I'm trying to talk to Dan Hedaya. Don't ever do that. And she does it anyways. It's really weird.
The other movie that there were a few, I feel like there was like the only other movie I can think of, though, is, for whatever reason, Catherine Zeta-Jones in The Terminal has a pager.
But she's like a businesswoman, right?
Yeah,
that's like a professional.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And no cell phones on planes. I guess that makes more sense.
That's the other thing is, like, Kevin, you're asking why doesn't he have a cell phone? Is like, I mean, I was like 4 when this movie came out. So, like what... How common were cell phones amongst like high schoolers or like elementary schoolers? Like,
it was still new, but it was definitely.
Yeah, I got my first cell phone that I shared with my sister when I was like in 8th grade, and that thing was a fucking brick. Like it would fill up an entire pocket. You couldn't fit anything else in there.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.